Right then, welcome back to the channel. Bit of news this morning, and it's probably news that's worth reacting to, I think. The big one is the Ten Hag decision delay. So United are taking their time over announcing the future of Erik Ten Hag. I feel like they surely know, right? They surely know. And for every minute that this is delayed, you can't work on your transfers. You can't sit down with... I saw that Lenny Euro was linked. I'll talk about that in a second, actually. But you can't sit down with your potential transfers. You could probably sell people, that's fair. But you can't sit down with people until you've told them. So the first question, I'm Lenny Euro, right? I sit down. Bonjour, how's it going? And he goes, okay, we'd like to bring you to Manchester United. Cool, who's the manager? Yeah, we don't know yet. Come on, man. So they launched a season review, supposedly, right? If you believe that they've launched a season review this week. There was a lot of rumour going around. I had a few texts from people saying Friday is Judgment Day, Friday. And then it came out a little bit last night that they haven't made the decision yet. Now, I don't want United to rush into a decision. But you kind of have to make a decision. You can't say nothing. You either have to say Ten Hag's our manager, and then everybody knows he's only got a year left on his deal. You know, no one's sitting there thinking he's the manager for the next decade. They know he's on a short deal. So with him being on a short deal, you can put things in place knowing he's on a short deal. And you can even speak to people and say, listen, if it don't work out with Ten Hag, he is on a short deal, and we'll be looking at bringing a new manager next year. Now, then players can make an informed-ish decision on that. Well, okay, do I think he'll be around, or do I not think he'll be around? And some people might just say, it's still a little bit up in the air for me. And maybe that's why they're umming and ahhing. Maybe they haven't quite decided how it's going to play out for them with Ten Hag coming in. But you can't delay it any longer. You know, I'm glad they didn't sack him after the cup final, because I think it's a real crass thing to do. But if you'd made the decision he was moving on, I think everybody's owed the right to know what's happening. It just don't quite add up. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's better ways of handling this. This might be the first sort of big fuck up we've seen from INEOS. And maybe that's why they're taking their time to make sure they get it right, to get the new appointment right. You know, there was clearly something going on with McKenna, and McKenna either made the decision or was informed, actually just stay with Ipswich for another season and see how it goes. Obviously, there's mad moves going on. Bayern Munich are now off the table in terms of looking for a manager. I mean, interesting appointment, I would say, with company going there after being relegated. And it got me thinking yesterday, actually. I was sitting there thinking, I heard someone say Pep Guardiola's the greatest coach. And then I thought, not if you're in a relegation battle, he ain't. In a relegation battle, genuinely, Sam Allardyce might be better. Like, you need someone that's going to be able to play percentage football. And then I thought, what actually makes the best coach? Is it someone that can just get wins? What makes the best coach? Could Pep do it with a lower team? Like, because I think Vincent Kompany really suits what Bayern Munich are going to be about, and I think he'll be just fine at Bayern Munich. You know, trying to survive in the Premier League playing a certain brand of football with Burnley versus trying to play that brand of football with Bayern Munich is a totally different thing. But it did get me thinking, like, what makes the best coach? Is it someone who could go anywhere and just win? It's not necessarily about the style of football that you bring. You are judged on results. Do you need to just win? And then I got to thinking, well, who does that make the best coach? Because when you look at, like, Ancelotti's been sacked so many times. I think we'd all agree he's one of the best coaches in the world ever, wouldn't we? Mad that. But anyway, yeah, INEOS need to make a decision quick. Absolutely. Benni McCarthy set to leave. So supposedly not been offered a new contract. Also saw that he'd been offered a contract as first team manager in South Africa. So I don't know if those two things kind of line up a little bit. He did sort of have some stuff to say. He did an interview and he was talking about Sancho and Ten Hag's fallout, and he said the manager's got a strong character. Jadon thought he was not at fault and that he'd done nothing wrong. He didn't see why he had to apologise. Sometimes we must apologise because a player will never win against the manager. And he said, I spoke to the manager, told him that Jadon thinks if he apologises, he'll be seen as someone who doesn't train hard and that everything he has said against him was true. The manager said all he wanted was an apology. I did see further quotes that kind of expanded on that. And I was sitting there a little bit confused, thinking, well, if the manager wants an apology, you can always frame an apology. Jadon could have easily tweeted, because that was the method of injustice in the first place in Ten Hag's eyes. He could always tweet something along the lines of, I shouldn't have taken to social media. That was wrong of me. I hope we can put this behind us and move forward. If he'd have done something like that, I think the manager would have been okay with that. Him sort of saying, I'm not apologising because then I'm sort of acknowledging that what he said about me is right. The thing is, if a manager is telling you you're not training hard enough, it almost doesn't matter what you think. He's right. He's your manager. If he's saying, I'm not training hard enough, how can you sit there and say, I am? Do you know what I mean? Whether you think you're wrong or you're right, it's probably, maybe apology is not the right word, but maybe have a discussion with him, like a fucking adult, and go, I actually think I am working hard enough. Can you point out to me exactly why? United sessions are videoed. It would not be hard for either party to prove what they were saying in this. Is he turning up late? That was one of the things mentioned in the expansion of the quote, which is like, he doesn't want to apologise for this because then he'll be seen as late and lazy and all that. Well, are you late? And are you lazy? Because if you're not, this isn't like it's just a U2 incident. There's probably 150 people involved in the training, in the security, in the car park attendants, in Manchester United to see whether this is accurate or not. I'm inclined to side with the manager over this because I find it very difficult to accept that a manager's just going to decide to victimise a player and decide that I want them out, especially a player of Jadon Sancho's talent, especially when you saw that little photograph of them on the sideline grinning at each other and almost hugging when he came back following the Amsterdam stuff. I'm inclined to believe the manager in this instance. Dortmund sort of let it be known, you have to kind of babysit Sancho a little bit before he left. And it's kind of out there that, we still got to sort of babysit him a little bit since he come back. So you've got two totally different clubs in Dortmund pre and post him being there and coming back. And then Manchester United. When he was at Manchester City, there was a lot of talk of problems, but I didn't buy the problems that they were sort of listed as at Manchester City. I felt the problems were that he wasn't going to be given first-team opportunities when he was clearly ready for first-team opportunities. And when he was told he wasn't going to be either going on the tour or he wasn't going to be involved in that, he spat his dummy out and forced to move to Dortmund. And I thought he was justified in doing that. Now, maybe in hindsight, that was him showing he wasn't mentally ready for it. But either way, I think more or less you can argue there's at least some truth to that. He maybe doesn't work as hard as he does. He doesn't look conditioned. He doesn't look as athletic as some of the people out there. Is he going to go down as another wasted talent? And character being just the most important thing to select for and scout, and one of the hardest things to select for and scout if you don't know someone that plays with them. What you want to be doing is just you want to be trying to speak to international teammates and club teammates, and if people are coming out saying, oh my God, what a leader, what a captain, what a warrior, okay, let's sign that guy. If people go, well, he's not really trusted to go home on his own, stuff like that, man, people talk in football. It'd be easy to find that stuff out, especially if you're investing 75 million into someone. It was probably worth having a little conversation, wasn't it? But then again, some people think that they can, tame people like that, which I don't know if that's the case or not, but, it's one of them. It's difficult, isn't it? And then Mike Phelan, interestingly. These people coming in INEOS, a lot of talk, maybe some action. We've got to see some action. I agree. Yeah, they've been putting people in place, but you do have to see the movement of it now. And then asked whether he thought Erik Ten Hag deserved another season in charge. He said, no, I don't. I do find that interesting. I'd love to have drilled down into that with him and find out. We had Mick on the podcast on Vibe with Five a while back. It was the day of the Euros final. It didn't come out that day in 2021, 3 years ago. It'd be interesting to have another sit down with him and see what was going on, especially now he's been out of professional football for a few years, and see how it's rolling with him. But it's interesting that someone, and how long ago this was. Mike Phelan was United's assistant manager when we last won the title. I think he was there from 99. As a first team coach, with McLaren being the assistant, and then I'm not sure when he became the assistant. I tried to drill down into what he actually did when he was the assistant, and because he came back obviously under Ollie as the assistant, but I didn't really know what his role as assistant was, because you didn't ever hear of him like being out on the pitch and stuff. And when he came into the office, I said, "Oh, how exactly? What is your role as the assistant?" And he said, "Oh, same as it was under Fergie." I don't know what that was. I don't know what that was. Now, obviously, you read Fergie's books and stuff like that, and he said he used Mick as a bit of a temperature checker and a bit of a link between the first team and the coaching staff. And he would very much be. It's very much a socio sort of psychology kind of role, of just going and asking the players how they are. I think a lot of management is managing people's personalities and managing people's. Going back to Jadon Sancho, if we'd have had Mick Phelan in there, are you all right, son? What's going on? How's everything going on? Did you get that new house? Yeah, I saw you bought a new car. How is it? Joe, just those nonsense kind of conversations that make you feel part of something, that make people feel like they care about you. A lot of these lads have got trust issues. They've had to sort of perform to be liked, to be picked. There's a weird psychology in that. The same with actors. You have to make people kind of like you. They can't just work hard. They have to be selected for the jobs that they do. And I think it affects you mentally. So I think having people that look after the social sort of mental side in football clubs, and the manager relationship is always going to be a frustrating one for people, because he's only picking 11 and there's 25, 26, 27 of you available every single week. So he's disappointing like 55% of the group every single week, apart from those that are injured. So in United's case, he's probably disappointing one person over the last season. But you know what I mean? Like you basically, your relationship with the manager is largely a disappointing one for the vast majority of people, and all the youngsters underneath him just aren't getting a look in. So you do need a good assistant manager. That's why maybe Steve McLaren was a great assistant manager the first time round. I have no idea what his role is under Erik Ten Hag. But he was that sort of guy that would put his arm around you. Brian Kidd, similar. He would care about you. He would know the names of your mum and dad and how many sisters and stuff you had. And he would ask you about them. And that's the things that people sort of remember. And I think it's important. And I don't think that's the side that gets looked after enough. People always want to talk about the sports science, which you resting heart rate, how's your recovery looking, blah, 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 blah. Well, and I got some thoughts on that one as well. I think there's a lot of talk at the moment about the amount of minutes played. Vinicius has played an obscene amount of minutes and an obscene number of appearances for his age. In terms of minutes played by the age of 21, they're talking first team minutes. David Beckham had played like 1,800 or something. Jude Bellingham's like 10 times more minutes or something by the age of 21. I don't know how much I'm buying that, because that's not including all of like the reserve grade football that the likes of the class of 92 played. It doesn't include that, but there's still a lot of that being played. Jude Bellingham's obviously played. He's been playing first team football since he was 16. He's been first choice since he was 16. First choice in Dortmund, now first choice in Madrid. One of the better players in all of those teams. Is there something about burnout in young players when you see the likes of Wayne Rooney, how early their career finished? The likes of Michael Owen, another who started young, how early their career finished. And then you flip it and you go, David Beckham's career lasted quite long, actually. Didn't suffer many injuries, had a broken foot, didn't he? But wasn't someone that got injured. Wasn't someone that relied on pace, because that's something that can fall off. That sort of stuff just makes what Ryan Giggs did so much more impressive and rare. Alright, it's pretty rare to win 13 titles. It's pretty rare to have an 8-year affair with your sister-in-law as well. But, I guess everyone's got to have the yin and the yang, haven't they? But, it's pretty rare for you to break through at 17, be first choice the way he was so early in his career, and then still be playing at 40 when people probably would have said you just relied on pace. He was a Wilf Zaha sort of choppy, agile winger early in his career. In his mid-20s, transformed it to being a cultured midfielder with vision and ability to dictate tempo and gameplay. Outrageous. But then, from 2007-8 onwards, those last 5 or 6 years, didn't start every week. Was rested, was looked after. Maybe there's a bit of that required. I don't know. Are the lads wearing whoops? Are the lads wearing fitness trackers? Because I know Cristiano Ronaldo's now just signed with Whoop. But I think tracking your heart rate, it's a very simplistic way of doing it, but if your resting heart rate is elevated, you're not recovering. If your resting heart rate is dropping back down to a nice resting heart rate, like I know when I'm ill. I know when I'm doing too much, my heart rate will be like 65 resting heart rate. When I'm fine, when I'm doing all right, my heart rate will get down to like 50, and I'll be happy with that. And I think footballers maybe need to do that a little bit as well. If your heart rate's getting too high, you're overtrained. It's a very simplistic way of doing it, but obviously there's a lot more sophisticated features on the Whoop. But I think they could be doing something like that. Because I don't know how they're monitoring it at the moment. And I know they've had this for 20 years. Rio talked about how the sports science department would have a certain number of intensity minutes that you was allowed to do during the week. And they'd be like, Rio, you're in the red, you need to come off. It's like, they've got fucking 3 minutes left of a practice match at Carrington. Like, fuck off. But then you look at the likes of, Cristiano. He would go home and train extra. So who's monitoring that? I know. There's probably loads more they could do, isn't there? Right, I've waffled on for far too long. Do we expect news today? There was talk that Friday was the day we were going to find out, and then it seemed like everyone shit it last night and decided that we weren't actually going to find out today. I guess we'll find out, won't we? Take it easy anyway. Have a good weekend. If not, I'll catch you in a bit. Laters.
Hey, thank you for watching the video. If you are new around these parts, then don't forget to subscribe. My channel is proudly supported by my community on Patreon. If you'd like to get a little bit of extra content, a Discord group, meetups, five-a-side games, weekly podcasts, behind the scenes, and even an occasional bit of transfer news as and when I get it, then for the price of a pint, you can show your appreciation for the content that we make and get some goodies for doing so as well. Check the link in the description or click the button right here. You'll also find all of my socials here too if you want to follow me on any of those platforms. Nice one.